Welcome to an introduction to using color and contrast. Throughout this presentation, you will notice that the font point size is 24 and is the minimum recommendation for presentations. Refer to the How to Select Fonts and Create Accessible Links video in this channel for additional information about fonts. By the end of this video, you will be able to design accessible course content and documents properly when using color. Differentiate between low and high contrast color schemes. Explain the color contrast requirements for text, graphics, and links. And finally, identify and use free color contrast tools to check your course content and documents for accessible color usage. According to the Colorblind Awareness Organization, colorblindness affects approximately 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women. Furthermore, there are about 300 million people in the world who are colorblind. Therefore, it is important to assure course content is accessible to all when using color in courses. Let's examine an example of a table that an instructor placed in a Canvas and Microsoft Word document. The instructor uses blue to note that a discussion is due, green for a paper, red for a midterm exam, yellow for a quiz, and purple for a final exam. A student who sees colors perfectly sees the table exactly as designed by the instructor. However, this is not the case for a student who is colorblind. Although this table was created in Microsoft Word, it is text. You can take a screenshot of anything on your screen using such tools as Snagit or Snippet, then save it as an image in JPG or PNG format. Then you can upload the image into the Pilestone Colorblind Vision Simulator to observe how a colorblind student sees the table. A link to the simulator appears in the description. Let's look at the results after this image is uploaded into the Pilestone Colorblind Vision Simulator. Notice the challenges that this table now presents to a colorblind student. The red is rust, green is olive, and purple appears blue. And it may be difficult to distinguish between the discussions and final exam due dates. Let's look at color contrast, which considers the background and text colors. Contrast measures the difference between two colors. If the text is dark, the background should be light. If the background is dark, the text should be light. Let's pause and examine a few examples of low and high color contrast text. If the background and text are similar, this is considered low contrast, and the content is difficult to read for a colorblind student, and potentially students who are not colorblind. Look at these 6 color contrast examples. The first 3 are high contrast and represents how you should use color and text in your courses, documents, and all content. The remaining 3 examples are low contrast, may not be visible to a colorblind student, are difficult to read, and should be avoided. Let's look at the contrast requirements for text. Contrast ratios range is 1:1 to 21:1. A 1:1 contrast ratio means the foreground or text and the background colors are the same. Therefore, they would not be visible. A 21:1 contrast ratio means the foreground and background colors are vastly different, black and white. Text smaller than 18 points or 14 points bold require a contrast ratio with the background color of at least 4.5 to 1. Text that is 18 points or 14 points bold or larger require a contrast ratio with the background color of at least 3 to 1. These two aligned contrast ratios align with Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.0 level AA standards, and also applies to text that appears on images and used to navigate or understand the content. It does not apply to logos or brand names. Charts, icons, infographics, and all other visuals that convey information require a contrast ratio of at least 3 to 1 against adjacent colors and the background. Let's look at a chart that was created in Microsoft Word. Using the WebAIM contrast checker, which allows you to use an eyedrop or hex code to enter colors, it will generate the contrast ratio and also tell you if it meets the requirements. In this example, the image fails for 3 reasons. The blue bars on the light blue background has a color contrast ratio of 3.1 to 1 and does not meet the requirement. The green bars on the light blue background has a color contrast ratio of 3.05 to 1 and does not meet the requirement. Finally, the blue bars next to the green bars have contrast ratio of 1.03 to 1 and also fails. A link to the WebAIM contrast checker appears in the description. Links must also meet color contrast ratio requirements. If a link is underlined, there are no additional contrast requirements. Links that are not underlined must have a 3 to 1 contrast with the surrounding body text, a 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio with the background, and a visual cue, such as when you hover over the link. This is an example of an underlined link that does not have any additional requirements, and a non-underlined link with a Q when you hover over the link. This concludes Introduction to Color and Contrast. You should be able to design accessible course content and documents in color, differentiate between low and high contrast color schemes, explain the color contrast requirements for text, graphics, and links, and finally identify and use free color contrast tools to check your content.